Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, Northeastern Ohio. I'm checking everything. Yeah, we're up and running on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, we're on 101.5 Wint Radio out of Lake County and 1330 a.m. If you want to call into this program, you can call 440-946-9468. And this program is being brought to you by the VFW out of Chardon and Middlefield and the American Legion out of Chardon, Middlefield. And Red Eft. I always want to call it Red EFT, but it's Red Eft Arborists.
Old habits, huh, Skip?
And you can get a hold of them by calling 440-850-4968. And they're not just tree guys. I was out looking at some of my foliage, my trees in my yard this weekend. I picked up a brand new Still electric chainsaw, and works fantastic. But that's good for cleanup. But if I want to take down a big tree and I got a couple one leaning towards my garage, I am not going to get on a harness and a set of spikes and climb to the top of that tree and top it, and to try and keep that tree from falling into my garage. I am calling Red Eft Arborist and having them take a look at the tree, first of all, to find out whether or not it's going to fall in and crush my roof. And if it is, then I'll get Andrew out here and his crew, and they will take that sucker down in a matter of probably an hour, clean it up, and it'll be done with, and I won't have to worry about that tree falling over into my garage and wrecking my life. And
You're
so
smart not to mess with it yourself, Skip. I hear there are hundreds of people per year who take those sorts of things on themselves and end up getting hurt.
I've got stories about climbing ladders with a running chainsaw and cutting a
Oh,
limb off and having it knock me off the ladder with a running chainsaw. So I've had some experience. I've been very fortunate, and thank God I've not cut my arm off or some other bodily part. And
thank
so,
heavens.
and today, especially at my age, I'm going to call Red Eft and have him come out, and I can watch him get a cup of coffee or a beer and talk to him as he's climbing all over the trees, cutting down things, and it's actually fun watching them. So with that said, I've got a good experience with Red F. So Jonathan and I were having an interesting debate this morning before we got on air about some of the stuff that's swirling around us. I had a conversation with some candidates over the weekend, one of which was Nikki Frenchco, and she was expressing some frustration with the establishment. We have our issues, and with the Democrat versus Republican side, which resulted in a shooting attempt, which just boggles my mind. The current crop of Democrats are just ridiculous in some of their Marxist language, which includes, that's when I say Marxist language, it's the language of division, divisiveness, and
Yep.
separating us into camps. And then they're using such overheated rhetoric that
Yep.
it would drive somebody or motivate somebody to do what they did over the weekend. And they won't back off. They're continuing. Some of these guys ought to be removed from office. I mean, literally, what they're doing is treason in my mind, and it is attempting to kill. I mean, somebody, I forget where it is. I think it's California. Some guy's got a coffee shop, and he's going to buy some free cup of coffee if somebody can kill the president. This is absolutely. I've never seen this before in my entire life. We've had political discussions and debates and division, but never to this level. And even in our own party, I was vilified in the one of the local papers by the former GOP head. Um, and it's ridiculous. She doesn't even live here anymore. She created more angst in the Republican Party than anybody I can think of in recent times. And she's got the gall to say that me and a couple of other elected officials were creating harm in Geauga County when all we've
Yeah.
done is work to for the betterment of and to have open debate and discussion like this. I mean,
Yeah, that
Jonathan,
was the woman that kept the county GOP closed for 10 years,
yeah, J-
basically,
J-
and
J-
spent 10 years creating this under the ridiculous and broken banner of Big Tent. She spent about 10 years getting as many Democrats, far left, liberal, progressive Democrats, involved in the Geauga County Republican Party as possible. We all know it. Everybody who pays the slightest bit of attention knows that that was a goal and objective. In fact, this woman of whom Skip is speaking, this woman Skip is speaking about, actually used to publish requests for Democrats to go and poll Republican ballots in Geauga County to vote for the supposed, and we're quoting this, Republicans. That's how we ended up where we are in Geauga County. I just had to interject that.
yeah, I mean, we've got so much complication swirling around us. And Jonathan, that what I want to talk about this morning, and I'm not sure exactly what we do. I'm kind of at a loss. We started these programs, the Voice of Jaga radio program, which you and I need to talk about the future of this radio program, and the Voice of Jaga newspaper, which will be coming out today in
Oh, good.
all of Geauga County. So it's going to be dropped today. And by the way, everybody can go to the Voice of Geauga website. I posted some information over the weekend, one of which was the press release for the Axe, Ohio, and it's a really good press release. Everybody got to go look at it. It's a video of the entire team as they give the press release. And now I'm understanding that on the Republican side, well, actually on the opposite side, I don't know, it's probably both Republican and Democrat. There's all kinds of propaganda that's going to come out on the effort to do this because they cannot stand. We've gotten to 300 and some thousand vote or signatures without any money, just volunteers across the state of Ohio.
Yep.
They're going to spend
Yep.
millions of dollars to fight this because they don't want to lose power. That's it. They want to
Yep.
overtax us. It's about overtaxing us, and they don't want to lose power. But there's so much of this going on. Jonathan, I'm kind of at a loss. We've done the tea parties. We try to educate people. We do it in a civil manner. We're not uncivil. I saw a No Kings rally in Lake County. I drove past it, and these people were rabid. We've got all these uh, pedo signs and Epstein, and they're screaming and yelling. And when we have anti-Biden rallies, it's fun. We go there and we have some signs and we call them some names and we have some fun. These guys are
There's
mean,
music, and
and
the people
so
there will talk to anybody, and they're civil, and they're open. There's just to interject really quickly, Skip. This was kind of a tell-all for me during the 2020 election. Between we had what was it? There were a couple of influencers, social media influencers, who would go into one camp wearing Republican garb and MAGA, and Make America Great Again, and Trump T-shirts, and they would go into the opponent into the Democrat rallies, and they got things thrown at them and threatened and pushed, and a couple of them got beat up and in the emergency room, and then they had people go with whatever Kamala Harris or whatever the Democrat candidates put on hats and T-shirts and everything, and then go into the Republican rallies. And they were welcomed in and like, hey, I completely disagree with your candidate, but let's talk. What is it that you like about Kamala Harris? And do you want to come in here, grab a coffee with me? Let's talk. There were so many videos like that. Sort of this person on the street video of people getting beat up for varying even slightly from the narrative on the left at these leftist rallies, and people being welcomed in on the right. So that to me was very telling.
yeah, and I would say we have to stay where we are. I mean, we cannot let these guys pull us into their swamp. That's what they want. That's what Marxists want. They want you to fight. They want to create
Right.
an issue that they can now use, and we have to stay to our values and principles and stay rational. These guys are irrational. Even in our own party, and we've got a bunch of Democrats that have moved into our party. I can name a couple. They happen to be county commissioners right now.
I can name a
But,
lot of them.
but they come into our party and they bring this goofy thinking with them to the point where we've got a candidate, Nikki Frenchko, who is she went through the work, got her petition signed. She's a valid um, uh, candidate, but her opponent will not talk with her, won't have a debate with her, won't have a discussion. So therefore, the people in our communities are disadvantaged because they don't know the candidates well enough. So all they can listen to is Nikki. She's just running all over the place, and the Republican parties in Lake County shut her out, won't allow her to talk. She goes to the GOP
Good grief.
Lincoln Day
That's
event.
not a
She
that is
goes
not
to
an effective,
it is not.
reasonable
And they,
Republican
they don't
Party.
understand the republic or democracy or democratic process. Ashtabula did the same thing. Shut her out, literally threw her out of a GOP event in Ashtabula. This is wrong. I mean, I don't care what you say about
Thoroughly
Nikki.
wrong.
And anyway, we're coming up on a break. I'm going to let
We
you take
are.
us into
I'm
the break.
sorry.
I'm
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 stepping on
just
your toes
upset
there,
today
Skip.
at what I'm seeing and the reasons for all of it. So
I'm with you there. We're coming up on a break. Don't forget you can call in at 440-946-9468 to join the conversation today. Also, find us on social media, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. Don't forget to click that like button. We'll come back with more on the other side of the break.
30 seconds. I mean, mics are off, mics are off.
I see a comment in Gardens of CH. You're absolutely right. The other side, in order to keep their power, and you have to wonder. There's an old saying, "Thou dost protest too much." When they're going to spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and some of which is probably taxpayer money, to fight
Yeah.
this effort that's been started, you got to wonder why they're fighting so hard. Rather than have a rational conversation, they won't even sit down and talk about the pros and cons. And I can tell you there's some very logical, rational things that Brian Massey and John Plechnik and John Mara and the whole team has to say, but nobody will even give them the time of day to discuss some of the options. I mean, I've done a huge amount of homework on this and have a lot of facts and figures and understanding of how this whole thing works. Plus, I used to be in elected office, two offices, commissioner and trustee. So I know the inside track on how the monies are managed and so on and so forth. These guys are, I mean, it's actually upsetting to me that some of our elected officials, people that I know, are not willing to have a rational conversation. That's a problem we've got in our system.
Well, to me, I typically take that as a clear sign that they know there's an issue. They know there's a problem, and they want that problem not to be uncovered. In the case of Geauga, the very strong suspicion,
30 seconds, 30 seconds.
is that there are some people, some bad actors who are collecting money inappropriately, and they're very large sums of money. And if there's daylight on it, then those people start losing their gravy train life.
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Today we're talking about all sorts of things around brainwashing and cult-like behavior. And at its highest level, step back from some of the instances and some of the issues that we currently face, it begs asking the question, who is the cult? Who's in the cult? If you find that you are mentally and emotionally anguished and antagonized by the clothing somebody wears, or a choice of words, or whether you perceive them to be in a certain camp or not, or their skin tone, or their religion, or if they're not religious. If you find yourself to the point that you are so antagonized by some group or a belief system or some perceived us versus them, then maybe you should be asking yourself the question, have I been drawn into a cult? And what I find is that for the most part, we're in an environment right now that's the inversion matrix. We find that the people who are friendly and nice and want a just society and advocate for law and order, and the types of people who go to worship on the weekend and they smile and they're friendly to each other, are being typecast now as mortal enemy of society, and they must be attacked. Uh, the, the Christians, the Jews, the Catholics, the people who advocate for K through 12 education, um, they we're now at a place where there's a group of people, and they'll take it many steps further than that, and go into a Democrat stronghold wearing a red hat. The chances are fairly good that you're going to get jumped just for your hat. And before that, it was what shoes you were wearing, or, belt buckle, just anything. They're so emotionally antagonized that they will cause bodily harm and try to attack and harm people based on this perceived other, that they're in the other camp. They must be attacked. And those same people are pointing the finger and accusing others of being in a cult. So I think that begs that question: who is or isn't in that cult? And it all goes back in my book to brainwashing. We've talked often, actually less often on this show, but frequently on Ohio Political News and other podcasts with which I'm involved, about something. I'm going to throw a little breadcrumb out for our audience. In 2012, something called the Smith-Mund Act changed. The Smith-Mund Act, effectively, I'm going to give some Cliff's notes and then tell you where I'm headed with this, and then I want to get Skip's opinion. Starting in the early era of radio, from radio broadcast, America got involved in trying to push Western ideals into Eastern Bloc countries and South America. And we had radio shows. It was Radio America, I think it was called, the original broadcasts. And we would talk and play great music and talk about how great it is to create a free and open society. And America is this great place. And so we were pushing Western influence into places outside of the United States. Put another way, it's propaganda. We were putting propaganda out into other parts of the world. The law that was passed, I think it was 1943 ish, was the Smith-Mund Act. And that said, effectively, it's okay to use propaganda, but it must not be used within the United States. We cannot use propaganda against our own citizens. In 2012, that changed. The the crack in the wall was made, and it became okay to use propaganda against American citizens, and that has led to things like the COVID experience. That was pure propaganda from tip to tail, starting off with the jabs and how those were going to be 100% successful at eliminating the viral spread, and then they kept dropping it and they kept changing it, and the mask and then two masks and social distancing. That is a propaganda play that's textbook, and it was used against American citizens. Right now, No Kings is another great example. That is pure propaganda. We even now know the people who are funding it, the sources and origins of that money, where it's going through, which banks and financial institutions, who's getting paid, how they've been trained. And there's one woman in particular, I think she's based in Minneapolis, who has a background in this. She's all over, thumbprint is all over CIA operations, influence peddling in foreign nations, and now she's operating within the United States. So to me, the whole thing goes back to using propaganda to pit people against each other, create chaos and confusion, drive up violence, and then you can dismantle and disrupt, you can destroy a nation from within. And all of that is how to defeat America without firing a single shot. It's been talked about and read into the congressional record uh, since the early 1960s. Right, Skip?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting topic you bring up. I've got somebody on Facebook who just texted out to us. Good morning, Dick, and good comment. I think saying we have a good program this morning. But the interesting thing about this, I've been watching this for a long time. I'm a bit older than you are. Um, Pretty familiar with the program that you were talking about, and saw a lot of news um, around that at the time in the 60s because that was all brought up, and we had Radio Free Europe, and we're pumping our own United States propaganda into Cuba and various other places around the world. But
Yeah.
those tactics, I can see being used. There's puppet masters, and these puppet masters do what you're doing talking about. They have an agenda, and for some group, Marxist communists who have been in this country even back in the World War II days, back during Nazi Germany, we had Nazis here in the United States trying to simulate that whole Nazi stuff, and it was actually catching um, had some groundswell of success. But so we've had this in our country for a long time. We've always had enough moral underpinning and enough common sense in our country to push back on it and fight it. And so we kept it in the margins. But I'm seeing that take off today. So we get these puppet masters that push a lot of this stuff out into the information sphere through social media and through a lot of other things, and it kind of takes root. And so you get some local organic efforts as a result of that. And the folks that are stimulating this at the national, international level. And by the way, a lot of this is international. Make no mistake about it. We have other countries that are bringing their agents into our country. China being one, and I can give you examples. I've seen it firsthand when I was doing a lot of international travel and so forth, and people from various parts of Europe that come into this country with the intent of stirring up problems and trying to create divisiveness within a country, and they've been pretty successful. Stalin and Vladimir Lenin used to call people who they got stirred up, and Mao, same thing, and Castro, the same thing. They used to call these folks that they would pick up the torch and go out and create rallies and um, and all this panic and stuff were called useful idiots. And useful idiots because they just mindlessly go out and do that. Where you and I and a number of us, I mean, I question a lot of stuff that's being done in our government, even though we have to have the government we have. We work hard to have good elected officials in office, and we try to keep them in check when they're off doing, things aren't working correctly, like this whole um, axe the tax in Ohio effort that we're doing. We try to do it in the right way, in the proper way, and the other side doesn't want to do it that way. They just want to overthrow the government, so to speak. And so you got a bunch of useful idiots that go to these No Kings rally. If you challenge them and ask them questions, they don't have the answers. Anybody that thinks that Donald Trump is a pedophile is an idiot. I mean, I don't know what else to call them. I don't want to be kind. I don't want to be, polite. They're idiots. Anybody that thinks that Donald Trump is a felon because of the bogus court effort that was obviously bogus, you're an idiot. And if you disagree with me, call this program 440-946-9468. I'd love to have a rational conversation with you because there is no proof of any of that. And so we see all this stuff going on, and what has this resulted in? It results in a candidate, a valid candidate, who worked her butt off to get into the congressional race. Now, say what you will, she has no money. Her chances of winning, who knows what that is, but she's getting a lot of traction, and now the Republican Party sees that, and this is my party, the Republican Party. They won't allow her to participate in the Republican process or the democratic process. That is shameful. That is shameful to you and the Lake County GOP. You should be ashamed of yourself. That's terrible. You should allow the democratic process to take place and unfold, and let Dave Joyce and Nikki Frenchko get it in there and mix it up. Dave's certainly got enough money. He certainly is experienced enough in his position. He's been in it forever that he can defend himself. And, let's have a true Republican Democratic process, for God's sakes. Let's show the world that we're bigger than all of this angst that we're currently got and shooting the president. Shame on you, Democrats.
Trying to. Skip, I need to step in. Apparently, we are, once again, it seems like we're having issues with our timer for the show. We're coming up on a break. Don't forget that you can join the conversation both on social media, that's Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, or by dialing in 440-946-9468. We're going to continue the conversation on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
I apologize to everybody. I'm on a rant today. I'm just all upset after seeing what we saw with President Trump and hearing what I'm hearing and watching what's going on. It's just disturbing to me. When I talk to Nikki and she can't even go to a Republican event, that's just sinful. That's just shameful.
Well,
in my mind.
There's an answer to that. It's an easy one. It's the same answer I've been talking about for 3 years.
And what's the answer?
Precinct strategy.
I mean, look at what happened to you, Jonathan, in your own precinct, in the Central Committee race. By the way, I'm assuming you got your signs. Are they okay?
Thank you.
They work okay?
Good.
All right.
3 of the 4 are out. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, so it's civics. We lost an interest. We lost the interest on the patriotic conservative side decades ago, getting involved in local politics. So who filled that void? Bad actors. It's and then around 2010, it was actually training within the Democrat Party. Democrats under Obama were training to infiltrate the Republican Party, and they treated it like a war. The same way that they're approaching political maps as strategic warfare. They plan, they plot, they organize, they're incredibly motivated. They did the same thing to infiltrate the Republican Party. So now the reason that we have so many Democrats, far left liberal Democrats within the Republican Party is because they went after it. They want that power. And so far, we the people have done very, very little to claim that power. So County Central Committee, all the endorsements, controlling slate card, controlling who gets elected, and then holding them accountable. Then the things like you're seeing in Lake and Ashtabula, those are results. We have bad actors all throughout the county and state Republican Party. It's how you get these horrible endorsements and how you end up with Ohio falling into this pit of last place in virtually everything and overspending and overtaxing because we have this misguided notion that we're a two-party system. It's not a two-party system when half of the Republican Party has the exact same mission, objectives, background, and agenda as the progressive liberal Democrat Party.
Well, it's just both parties are dysfunctional. We can't have a rational debate and discussion. It's
I don't agree.
sad.
I don't agree. It's not dysfunctional. It's their plan, the plan that you can look at and see the training videos from 2010 under Obama is playing out. It's not, well, they're not functional. It's that they literally have their fighters on our side of the fight.
Yeah, when I say dysfunctional, it's not functioning as it was designed. We're supposed to have, rational debates, discussions, operate as a team, and maybe have some disagreements, but still be a team. That's not what I'm seeing anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the Democrats actually, that's the way that they're operating in their camp. They're laughing at us because we're tearing ourselves apart.
30 seconds.
Yeah, so I mean, just like I've used the analogy of sports. If we did some recruiting in the Browns and just figured out that we're suiting people up who are literally playing for the other team, if they pick the ball up and run to the wrong end zone, or blocking our punter.
10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. We're talking about things revolving around brainwashing and what it takes to get people to the point where they're so is enamored the word I want? They're so confused and clouded by the 10 years of smear tactics and the propaganda campaign against anybody who is patriotic, pro America, capitalist, pro West, um, you name it. If you fit into any of these camps, and I'll even include if you're pro education, as I get mass amounts of hate and vitriol from the left just simply by posting screen captures from the Ohio Department of Education and how bad our education system has gotten. But in that realm, there's a very legitimate argument, and I believe that I win if I could get anybody to actually communicate and argue that the left is a cult, and it's turned itself into a death cult. They seem to just revel in blood, murder, and assassination. I mean, look at what happened when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There were people all over, and it was heartbreaking to see that many of them were in the education realm, specifically K through 12, and many of them were in the healthcare realm. And these are people that posted all over social media about how delighted they were that Charlie Kirk, who was trying to hold public debate it's in a non-threatening, very pacifist um, d- way. There were celebrating his death. Well, there's a post that I want to point everybody to. I'm not going to go through it now. It's a little bit of a long form post from this actually came out from James Woods fans. If you're not familiar with James Woods, he is a Hollywood actor, but also one of very few very conservative Hollywood actors. He's been in lots of films and he posts all over social media. This actually is on Facebook, and it's probably not James Woods himself. It's a post from James Woods fans, and it speaks to this whole thing. It speaks to the assassination attempt, the latest assassination attempt. But the crazy thing, when you get to the point where, as a public, we cannot get through a simple debate about any one of the massive array of smears against our president, the moment you bring it up, if you're not immediately stomping your foot angry and turn beet red with rage, then you're assumed to be, you're just in the Trump camp and you're in this group and you can't hear any. I, I, I will say, I routinely say on the record, I agree with about 85% of Trump in what he does, mostly because I watch his policy and I'm not paying attention to his tweets. I don't care what he says. I'm sorry to say it, but whatever he's saying and posting on social media, I routinely tune it out. He's there to be president, and president means policy. That's what I'm paying attention to. But back to the matter at hand. If you bring up the allegations of sexual misconduct or the allegations that he inappropriately categorized real estate, or that he's withholding his tax documents, or that he was holding top secret documents in his house, and all these allegations, they're rolled out. The public and almost entirely, it's just leftists, embrace this thing. Then at some point, it proves not to be true. Some of the media retracts the thing, but they hold on to it on some emotional level, and just it builds on the rage. And now the rage is manifesting in all sorts of arenas, in all sorts of areas of life. It seems like you can't even go out in public with heaven forbid you wear the wrong hat or look at somebody the wrong way. If they're on the left, they are just filled with bottled up rage. So this post from I think just came out yesterday, 18 hours ago, pardon me, from James Woods fans. It's worth reading. It talks about how you can create a cult with bloodlust and color it under the banner of social justice and social reparations. We're morally correct in assassinating these people because they're so bad. We're going to create a better society, and you won't be able to live an easier, better life until they're all murdered. That's happened before. The shocking thing is to see that mentality in the United States. this post is worth a read. What do you think, Skip?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching some of the banter going back and forth, even on our Rumble chat. There was some discussion about Nikki's experience in Ashtabula. Apparently, she went to a Republican Women's GOP PAC meeting, so it was a support group PAC meeting, and she was not treated very well. I don't know all the inside facts. I wasn't there, but I know what Nikki was telling me, and if true, it's irresponsible for the Republican women, and I've seen that um, here locally where people treat candidates with disrespect, even in our own party, in the Republican Party, and that's a shame because if we're going to have a functioning Republican Party, we need to treat each other with respect. I mean, I don't disrespect my opponents when I'm running against them. I expect that we'll have a lively debate and discussion on the issues. And but what you're seeing today is more than that. You see this dark money coming into Geauga County, and we cover that in the paper. I haven't seen any of that in the Maple Leaf, by the way, or the Chagrin Valley Times. Nothing about the dark money, these fake mailers that are going out by this Ohioans for Responsible Government nonprofit corporation and PAC. So it's two. They create the nonprofit so they can shield money coming to the PAC. That's corrupt. It's criminal. It shouldn't be happening. The people participating in that, who I believe personally, it is some of the elected officials that are going to benefit from those slate cards that are coming out claiming a Republican endorsement when they're not. That's a lie. There's no Republican endorsement because the Republican Party doesn't endorse. When you see that kind of tactics going on, it's very frustrating. And to those of us who just want to have a good, robust, hearty debate, discussion, whatever, it's not we don't want all this dirty crap going on behind closed doors. I mean, we do this program, Jonathan. You and I put ourselves out there. We don't hide where we are. We're very honest. We're very straightforward. And if anybody wants to take us on, they can call us. We give the number 440-946-9468. Of course, people oftentimes are afraid to have a rational debate discussion. They just want to scream and yell names at people. That's why I'm on my ramp this morning. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what we do other than continuing to try and promote the right set of values and principles by trying to have this discussion and debate. When we go into our GOP Central Committee meetings, you and I are very assertive. We're very straightforward, but we're very professional. We don't scream, yell, whatever. We just try to put our beliefs forward, and we might do it in an emotional fashion, but it's because we're passionate about what we do, but we want to hear both sides. And unfortunately, there are folks that just want to shout you down. This the lady that used to be our chairman, you couldn't have a rational conversation with her, and that's part of the
Well,
reason
but
that
Skip,
the GOP wasn't functional.
I think it goes beyond that. Actually, no, it goes beyond that. There are people within the local Republican Party who have been misled, or maybe worse, maybe they're just intentional bad actors who treat the county Republican Party not just as a social club, but they are adamant that there should be no discussion of anything, no activity, no thinking, no voting, no effort, no initiative, and they completely miss the mark. It's been said, but it was actually Lake County Commissioner John Plechnik is known for saying that precinct committeeman is the most powerful position in government that nobody has ever heard of. And it's absolutely true. If you get majority, there isn't anything you can't accomplish. Anything is possible, and all of it is possible. Anything that you're concerned about can be done if enough we the people get involved at the local level. But there's a tipping point, there has to be. If you're outvoted and outnumbered, you can't accomplish a thing. And so what we've unfortunately found ourselves uh, found our way into in Geauga County and many other counties like it. I've communication with better than half of the counties in Ohio through Ohio Precinct Strategy. That is, by the way, the website, ohioprecinctstrategy.org. The people that run that are very close friends of mine, and we work very closely in counties to train the public on civics. It stopped appearing in public education in the late 60s. So we have generations now of kids that don't understand the levers of power and the mechanisms of local power. If you want better people elected to local office, you have to control the county GOP. If people get into office and they misbehave and do horrible things, you have to control the county GOP. If you want to have somebody like a Nikki Frenchko or whoever it is, and held open debate to find the best candidate for a position, and I'd love to find our way one day to including school board members in that, like the Democrat Party does. They endorse school board members and back them. We don't yet on the Republican side. But if you want those things, you have to control the Republican Party Central Committee. We're coming up on a break. Again, I apologize. This may be a little bit of an awkward out and back in from the break because I'm not able to see the timer during today's show. But remember, if this conversation strikes a nerve, you can join the conversation on social media. That's Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube, or dial in 440-946-9468. We will come back with more on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
So there's a lively debate going on right now in Rumble having to do with Nikki's visit to Ashtabula. Like I said, I only have the input that I got from Nikki, but because I wasn't there, and apparently Sharon was there at the meeting, but across the board, I think Nikki's not been received well by the GOP. Uh, Central committees, which is unfortunate. I mean, say what you will about her. Some people like her, some people don't like her, but she is a candidate. She did go through the process to run, and she should be treated um, with respect in that regard. She is a candidate, and it's unfortunate that some people don't understand the Republican or the Democratic process. And the pure fact of it is the GOP central committees really can't control who runs for office. If a candidate wants to come fill out a petition and fills out the petition as a Republican and they qualify, they can run. And so the best central committees can do is hope to ensure that they follow a process where it's transparent and everybody gets to understand who they are. Because candidates campaign on their own. They put out their own signs. They put out their own material. They run on their own accord. And
30 seconds.
and we
30
have some
seconds.
issues with that in our own county because we've had people that have crossed over and done that. So,
But Skip, I think you just witnessed the rebuttal to your argument. They can and they are controlling the race in Lake and Ashtabula. That's what they're doing.
They're not controlling the race.
10
They're
seconds. 10
they're interfering
seconds.
with the race. There's no question.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. During the break, we were talking about influence and how some people seek to put their thumb on the scale of things like elections. Elections to office are fundamentally important, and they control our lives and the future of our county, of our state, and of the nation. And there are some smart people in politics who figured out long ago ways to put their thumb on the scale through things like attack ads, because those sometimes work. If you don't have anything to run on, if you don't have a platform or any success, and you don't have anything that the public might find interesting or attractive, then you just smear your opponent. And unfortunately, in an uneducated environment, an uneducated world, that sometimes works. The counter to that is a robust, active informed and engaged county Republican Party. Because if you have a county Republican Party who has things like a vetting subcommittee, that's just a group of people who vet, interview, and report on candidates and talk about them, then lots and lots of really good things can happen out of that. For instance, all those times when local representatives, and there's one in particular who comes to mind who covers Geauga County, who votes routinely, more than half the time votes with the progressive far left ultra liberal, then the county Republican Party could do all sorts of things to send a notice to that elected representative who are not happy with you. And when somebody like Nikki Frenchko comes along to oppose, then there can be vetting, there can be interviews, there can be open debate and discussion. But if you have people with the intention of putting their thumb on the scale, all they have to do is just put on a little smear, say that's a bad person, we should ignore them, and they don't platform them. That is not acting like a republic. That is breaking the Republican form of government. That's breaking our constitutional republic. Anyone, Nikki Frenchko or otherwise, if they can find their way to get onto a ballot, they should be platformed. That platforming does both the good and the bad. It exposes the bad because you can stand up in those meetings and say, I took the time to look up their voting record, and I want this candidate to answer why they voted Democrat in the last 30 election cycles. And that puts their feet to the fire and holds them accountable. And if they do get into office, then we have a mechanism to go back and reprimand them and maybe make sure they don't get reelected, because that's an ongoing problem too. All of that stems from the Republican Party. And for 10 years, we've had a Republican Party, 10 plus, I think. It predates my arrival in Geauga County. We've had a Republican Party in the county that has been, by design, unwilling and uninterested to tackle the issues. No debate, no discussion, no topics, no initiatives, no resolutions, virtually non existent until roughly a year ago. And I'm with Skip. I find it refreshing when we're able to go in there and kick ideas around, and we should do it in a respectful way. Listen to each other, and may the best idea win. But it takes more patriotic, constitutional, conservative, America-loving people to get involved at the local level.
So, a lot of what you just said, I can agree with and disagree with. While I disagreed with our former, prior to Nancy coming on board as our leader of our GOP, her predecessor actually, and he and I disagreed a lot, um, always allowed open public discussion debate. The GOP was actually pretty functional when I first joined years ago.
It
And it
wasn't
got
my intention to speak on that person. I have no knowledge. I don't even know the
no, no,
name.
no. The point I'm trying to make is it got very dysfunctional because we chose the wrong chairman,
Yep.
by whatever reason, and she destroyed the party's ability to have an open public debate. But I wanted to go on a little bit of a tangent. We have a Stu, and I'm not going to say his last name, on Facebook, who just threw a bomb out, which I loved. Thank you, Stu. I appreciate your input. He said he referring to Donald Trump. He can start all of the wars he wants. It's not really a war. It's a military action. Having been in the service, I understand the difference. But the Epstein mess won't go away. And I would love to get into a discussion with you about Epstein, Stu. Donald Trump is the farthest thing from anybody involved with Epstein. If there was anything having to do with the Epstein files that would have harmed Donald Trump, I guarantee you Biden would have put it out years and years and years ago. But it's just a contrived mess by the people on the liberal side who want to create
Intentional
something.
distraction.
And so, yeah, just a distraction. So Stu, thank you. Obviously, you and I don't agree, but I'd love to have a conversation with you about that stuff because I think if we got the debated the facts, I might come out on top on that. But we're up against the end of the program. What I suggest you do is get with us at the beginning of the program, and we'll clear the deck. We'll let you come on for the entire program, and we can have a debate and discussion with you about anything you want to talk about.
Wow, you're
Um,
offering to, you must really, if you've taken a shine to Stu, you must like him. You're
well,
offering
I
leadership.
don't know about liking him, but I love the debate. And so if Stu wants to come on, similar to Turning Point USA and Charlie Kirk, let's prove me wrong, Stu. Prove me wrong. Come on the program, and we'll give you an opportunity to promote your take on the world. I was going to say something else in a different way, but I have no issue with people who don't see the world the same that we do. And what I do have an issue with when people just call names without, it's just shouting names at people, and that is not productive. It doesn't get us anywhere. There is a truth out there, or at least some shade of the truth. And the only way to get to it is to put it all out there and have a debate on both sides, back and forth. And that's what we're trying to do on this program, is to at least get the as much facts out as possible and let people decide for themselves. But we've got a sick system right now. I mean, I set a little bit of a topic, and then I know we're coming up on the end of the program, so I'll shut up here quickly. But I just sat through the last county commissioner meeting, and there were some agenda items that I wanted to speak on so badly. I am really object to the Western Reserve Land Conservancy. And the Western Reserve Land Conservancy is a little shadow, hidden organization that is pushing forward with a Marxist ideology, destroying private property rights. And they're going around, and I see more and more Western Reserve Land Conservancy signs popping up all over Geauga County. And I hate that because I've first of all done a lot of homework. I understand what they're doing, and I can't get traction with people to understand what they're doing is destroying private, which is fundamental to this country. Owning private property and having the ability with private property to be able to have some say over it. They using your tax dollars in many cases, buy up the control of property. They don't protect it; they control it, and it's a bureaucratic or a nonprofit corporation that you don't have any idea where that's going to go with them in the future. We need to have a program on that alone. And the county commissioners went along and put a Western Reserve Land Conservancy on public property that we own. We don't need to have somebody else protect it and pay somebody to protect it if we own it. That's why I object to parks putting Western Reserve Land Conservancies on properties, because the parks own the property. The best people to protect property are the people that own it and that
Hmm.
have an interest in it. And so that there's so many things that go through our elected offices, our trustees. I could beat up on our local trustees a little bit too if I chose. So many things that go through the agendas I'd love to get to, but we're talking about all these national issues, which we have less impact on, but impact our lives in huge ways. The one thing I will say is go watch the video on the press release for X Ohio tax on a Voice of Geauga website. I'm sure you can go to Lobbyists for Citizens. They probably also have it there. But watch
I think
that
you can
press
find it
release.
on both locations. Unfortunately, we're coming up on the end of the break, and I want to make sure that we get off air in appropriate time. So we're going to wrap up today's show. Thank you again for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on WINT 101.5 FM, 1330 AM. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone.